Hello and good welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Wednesday's edition of The Scoop. We've done well so far. That's 3 out of 3 we've managed to give you this week in terms of The Scoop, obviously. So welcome. We're here live in the ICU studios in Poulton, Liffeld. I'm just going to close down things like Slack and stuff like that, so you guys that are working from home or working in the office that potentially have me on your second screen, because obviously you've got the ashes on the third one. You don't think that you're getting messages when you actually aren't. So let me just close them down so that it doesn't annoy you. And more importantly, it doesn't annoy me. But yes, this is The Scoop, the UK's #1 video game podcast, even if we do say so ourselves. And we go live each and every single weekday at 10 a.m.-ish. It's coming up to 1:30, which is very good timing because I kind of have to, not necessarily have to rush through this, but I need it to be a little bit more pacey than I would like to expect, especially when doing a podcast like this, because I have quite a lot on today. So I didn't want to not give you an episode of The Scoop today. I just need to keep the pace up a little bit, keep the show going on, because obviously if you listen to this live, you're probably doing so. In fact, you are doing so. The only place that you can watch this live is over at twitch.tv/ice cream uploads, or alternatively, if you were, again, it is in the middle of the workday. If you guys can't catch us live, that's absolutely fine. You can catch this show on demand services, whether or not you want to see our beautiful faces over on Twitch after the fact on the demand services, or obviously over on YouTube. But if you just want the audio version, you don't want to see us, you don't want to see our beautiful studio, you don't want to see our home offices, that's absolutely fine as well. You can catch that on the likes of Amazon Music, Spotify, iTunes, and obviously Amazon Music. So thank you very much for those of you guys that have already subscribed to the channel on the podcast services, that have rated the podcast 5 stars. We very much appreciate you guys. We would appreciate it as well if you guys that are listening to this that haven't done that, go over, give us the 5 stars that we absolutely deserve and are not conning you into doing so, because that would obviously mean the absolute world to us. So that's the housekeeping out the way. You know where you can find us, you know what time you can find us, you know who we are. So I suppose we better say hello to Viv, who's in the chat, to Tito and Jay, and I think Graham's in there as well. Packed house this morning. So yeah, we have got 3 news stories for you today. I have gone a little bit clickbaity, but at the same time, out of context, this reads as if it's your fault. Your fault. Okay? So the leading headline that we're going to move in with today is the fact that CD Projekt Exec claims that it's a cool thing to not like Cyberpunk 2077 after launch. Written by Ed Nightingale over at Eurogamer, he goes on to say that Cyberpunk 2077's launch was way better than it was received, but it became a cool thing not to like it, says a CD Projekt Exec. VP and PR communication Michael Platlow-Gwinski, I think I've nailed that to be honest, made the comment to gamesindustry.biz while reflecting on the launch of the game. I actually believe on launch it was way better than it was received, and even first reviews were positive, he said. Then it became a cool thing not to like it. We went from hero to zero really fast. That was the tough moment. We didn't know what was happening. We knew that the game was great, and yes, we can improve it, and yes, we need to take time to do so, and we need to rebuild some stuff. Cyberpunk's 2077 launch was an infamous disaster. This was for a number of reasons, not least of all the unplayable, buggy state the game was on consoles compared to PC. There was a positive response to the game reviews, including Eurogamer's own Cyberpunk 2077 review, but importantly, these were conducted solely on PC, which gave a false positive on the state of the game. Sony even pulled the game from PlayStation Store due to the bugs, hardly the result of a positive response that Plateau and Gwinski implies. Still, the updates to the game have vastly improved the experience of the release of Netflix anime Edgerunners has brought further success. Plateau Gwinski insists that the company has learned from its mistakes and isn't overstretched despite the vast number of projects and spin-off based off of Cyberpunk 2077. First of all of these projects are at different stages, we told GamesIndustry.biz. It's not that we're doing that thing all in the same moment and at the same stage, because that would be a lot of work. We are thinking about the strategy for the years to come. We really care about our IPs and we want to develop them. We want to create games within them, but also we want to make sure that we are focused all of the time. We have a lot of discussions like what's most important right now, where do we want to go, what do we want to achieve. The discussions that we're having are really healthy. It's easy to spread the butter too thin, but we are constantly checking and talking, and we think we know what to do. Cyberpunk 2077 set to receive a major expansion with Phantom Liberty in September, which far looks to deliver on CD Projekt's initial promise for the game. So, as I said, it isn't too far out of the realms of what I put in the title, because essentially the exec is blaming you, whether or not you are someone who works in the video games industry, whether or not you are a streamer, whether or not you are a consumer, whether or not you are of any kind of personality. If you've gone onto social media and you have badmouthed this game despite spending £70 on the game when it came out at launch, you are unfortunately part of the problem. I don't believe this for a second. We've talked about this many times. Graham famously still has it in his wrapper in his desk. I give it the time of day in terms of I installed it onto my console, expecting to play it 3 years ago for a Christmas game, and it didn't make me want to actually fire up the game for the first time, because I want to be able to experience this game in its absolute purest. And I feel like this September, that is going to be the case. Earlier this year, I actually came on this podcast and I said, I think I'm in a position now with the PlayStation 5 update. I think we're in a position now where I want to play Cyberpunk. I want to get around to playing it. I want to experience it. And then, obviously, I didn't. And then with this Phantom Liberty patch that's coming out in September with the extended DLC, which is obviously coming for free, I am super excited to actually jump into this game and play the game that we actually expected, how that was promised to us all of those years ago. So, yes, super excited to jump back into this one. I don't believe a word that this exec's saying, putting the emphasis on us. There has been 1,000,001 reports. I mean, it doesn't even have to be reports. You don't even have to read reviews. Just go onto YouTube and type in Cyberpunk bugs. Go onto Twitter, type in Cyberpunk bugs, and everything that you need to see that which was pointed to this game being an absolute disaster when it first came out are going to be there for you to be able to see yourself. Those of you that only played this on Xbox One or on the PlayStation 4 at the time that this came out, it was genuinely unplayable. PlayStation does not delist the game like this and give you a full refund for it if they didn't believe that this game was a bag of shit. That was the case then. It isn't the case now. It still has some form of bugs being put in there, but hopefully the Phantom Liberty stuff starts to take that back to, a 95% playable game. The best way to be able to play this game, and I actually alluded to this, it was either late last week or early this week, that the best way to actually play Cyberpunk was via Google Stadia. Because if you had a good enough internet to be able to stream this game to whatever device it was that you were playing on, the PCs, which were extremely high-end, like overkill for most people, were doing all the brunt work for you. Firing it down the line, you can play it wherever you want, and it was the best way to be able to play the game. If that's not a direction as to this game doesn't work all that well, the fact that Stadia was the best place to be able to play this game, there is definitely something wrong with the way that this game was launched. I imagine a lot of people who work at CD Projekt are looking at this wincing because of all the ground that they've been able to make up, and then someone comes out and says, actually, we believe that this game was a huge success. It was you guys that was bitching too much about it, and just because it was cool to say that it was shit. It wasn't cool to say it was shit. It was just shit. Like, it just didn't work. And that's the biggest cross to bear with this. If you need to come out and make up some goodwill, it's not a case of you just coming out and saying, I'm sorry. It's a case of you swallowing up the ego and everything else that comes along with it and just going, okay, we're going to fix this for you. They've done that. They've got to a point now where most people could probably recommend the game in its current state, never mind the update that's going to be coming in a couple of months' time. So put all of that to the side. I think they've got to a point where it's acceptable to be able to play this game now, but I'm gonna wait for the Phantom Liberty update, because there's updates to skill trees, to the way that the cars perform, quests that actually work, and you're not getting to the end of it and you can't hand the mission in or things like that. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna wait for the Phantom Liberty update and then get stuck into it, because I've been waiting to play this game for 3 years. I'm sure it was 2020. Was it 2020? This November-ish 2020 that it came out. It could have been 2021. It could only be 2 years, but either way, it's been sat on my shelf since it came out, the day that it came out. So yeah, I'm super looking forward to getting stuck into this as and when we can. I don't believe that this was the right PR message, considering this is meant to be the VP of PR. and they're coming out and saying this is absolutely your fault. That isn't good PR at all for your company, and it wouldn't surprise me if the share price has started to dip a little bit off of the back of that, because you can't just go around saying it's entirely your fault with the product behind you on fire in a skip somewhere. That's just not how these things work. But anyway, a game that I'm looking forward to, a game that I'm hoping... In fact, this is going to be a game that we're probably going to end up streaming on a Sunday, because this is something that I do want to be able to go with you guys. How long does it actually take to beat? How long to beat? Because on average, we stream for about 3.5 hours on a Sunday. So if this game's like fucking 40 hours long to actually complete the main missions, then yeah, we could be in for a long old year. 24.5 hours to just do the main story, and then main plus extras is 60 hours. Blimey. Okay, so I'll make some decisions on that one. House Flipper Cyberpunk. Apparently you can complete that in 21 minutes. Interesting. But yeah, a game that I'm looking forward to September. You're probably going to see some on this channel as and when I'm going through it. So hopefully we can give you some good feedback as to how the current state of the game is. Moving swiftly on then, back over to VGC. PlayStation bosses claim that publishers unanimously dislike Xbox Game Pass, written by Tom Ivan, again over at VGC, and he says that Jim Ryan claims game firms believe that Microsoft's subscription service is value deconstructive. Strong words from the PlayStation boss there. But anyway, Sony Interactive Entertainment boss Jim Ryan has claimed publishers are opposed to Xbox's Game Pass subscription model. Ryan was speaking during a video deposition, aired on Tuesday during Microsoft's ongoing court case with the US Federal Trade Commission, which is seeking to block the Xbox maker's proposed $69 billion acquisition of Activision Blizzard. During his deposition, Microsoft's lawyer asked Ryan about comments he made to PlayStation investors in a meeting that took place about a month after Microsoft had announced plans to acquire the Call of Duty maker in January 2022. Recounting the discussion, Microsoft's lawyer said that Ryan told investors that Game Pass had driven them to make the large acquisition. Ryan reportedly continued, "I talked to all the publishers and they unanimously do not like Game Pass because of its value deconstructive. Was that true at the time?" the lawyer asked. I believed it to have been true, responds Ryan. "You said you talked to all the publishers, did you?" pressed Microsoft's lawyer. "I talked to publishers. Sorry. I'm absolutely butchering this because I'm reading this from the court case as if I'm reading a story rather than sentences, which is why it's thrown me off a little bit. I do apologise. You talked to all the publishers, did you?" pressed Microsoft's lawyer. "I talk to publishers all the time, and this is very commonly held view over many years by the publishers," Ryan responded. Xbox Game Pass launched in June 2017 and has become central to Microsoft's gaming business, attracting over 25 million subscribers as of January 2022, according to the company. It offers its member. Do I really need to go over this? I don't do it. You guys know what Xbox Game Pass is, how much it is, and what you could potentially be done on this. So I'm going to skip past that. Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella has claimed that Xbox Game Pass subscribers play approximately 40% more games and spend 50% more time than non-members, benefiting game publishers. Jim Ryan said on Tuesday that he was expecting Game Pass to have attracted a larger subscriber base given the amount of money Microsoft had spent on the service. Elsewhere in his deposition, Ryan was asked how he felt about the recent Bethesda games being released as Xbox exclusives after Microsoft purchased the publisher parent company ZeniMax Media for $7.5 billion in 2021. On Redfall being released on May for Xbox Series S and X and on PC, he says, "I don't like it, but I have no quarrel with it." On the upcoming Starfield release on PlayStation, he said, "I don't like it, but I don't view it as anti-competitive." During his deposition, Ryan also said that Sony Interactive Entertainment would withdraw details about its next console from Activision if the company is acquired by Microsoft. So, that last sentence, for instance, during the deposition, Ryan also said that SIE would withhold details about its next console from Activision if the company is acquired by Microsoft. As much as I can be super funny here and saying that Sony would obviously be able to do that, they'd just say, "Do you know what? You don't need to know this information. We're not going to let you know it." Are Activision going to be that arsed if they sat there with a pot of money next to them? Probably not. because their services have been secured, shall we say, for forever, essentially. Regardless of what games it is that's going to be coming out, Activision Blizzard will have all of their services secured for at least the next 10 years, shall we say, because that's the kind of vibe that they were going for with this deposition, saying that we would hold my Call of Duty on the PlayStation for the next 10 years. If we are led to believe that that is going to be true, then obviously that will be a blow to Activision. But if that isn't the case, then it's information that they don't need to know beforehand. They don't need to know what the PlayStation specs are going to be to create games for it, because all the games will be console exclusive to Xbox. So, I mean, I don't think they're going to be that arsed if this ends up getting pushed over the line. But when it's all said and done, do I believe that publishers think that Game Pass is a bad thing? I don't know. I think it goes on a developer basis. I feel like if you are an indie studio and you've spent £1 million on creating your game, staffing them, housing them in terms of an office, and giving them the best PCs and the best tools to be able to create your game, and then Xbox come through and say, okay, we will give you £2 million to have this game over on Xbox Game Pass day one. So you're not going to get, you might get, if it's over on PlayStation or it's on Steam, you'll get the sales through that. But the emphasis on them coming through and playing the game exclusively or potentially just day one over on Xbox Game Pass, and Xbox will swallow the cost for the long term, because if a subscription to Xbox Game Pass, we'll call it £10 for the sake of a round number. Their subscription service, say £10, they will have to spend a hell of a long time hoping that people renew for the next 3 or 4 years, and then have a stupid amount of people wanting to buy into that subscription to be able to make that kind of money back over towards what they have just paid for it. Now, all of those numbers are just numbers I've pulled out of the air. They aren't accurate. They're just given as an example. But I believe if you're an indie company and you know that your service, that money that they have just given you there, and you know that you've got a hit on your hands, that money can go to securing the next one in the IP, or a completely different tale that you want to be able to tell with a completely different art style, a different genre of game. You have the ability now with that money to get put back in to be able to create something beautiful. I believe that would be great for indie games. However, do I think when it comes to first party games, or games that you know will have probably made more money back than what is going to be given on the service, I think that's where the ground becomes a bit murky. Because if you knew that this game, say Halo, I know it's. I'm trying to think of another game that I can use as an example that is owned, that will be available on other consoles and stuff, but we'll use Halo for the sake of this, I think. So Halo, we know, is a fantastic game. The franchise is fantastic. Halo Infinite has obviously had its issues, but we know that game will cost $3 million to be able to make. Okay, again, example number, $3 million to make, but they know that they're going to make $9 million back in revenue over the next year or so, next 18 months. They're going to make $9 million back. Net profit, $6 million. But then Xbox come in and say, I mean, I could have used any other game for this example. I don't necessarily know why I've come in with Halo for the sake of this, but for the sake of this, hey, Microsoft come in and say, we'll give you $7 million to just have this on Xbox. Do they take the risk of potentially selling it and getting $9 million back through the door, or do you take the $7 million now? It's a difficult decision to be able to make, because you are relying on, this day and age, people streaming your game and having a good time with it, the use of social media, the likes of IGN still writing reviews, the likes of us on these podcasts talking about your game in a positive light for us to potentially influence you guys that are listening to this, or that are reading these comments, that are reading these articles to go out and buy the game. Sure, do you take the $7 million now, or do you wait to potentially have in 2 years' time the $9 million? It's a very difficult decision to be able to make, and I'm guessing that's what Jim Ryan's hinting towards here. Because you're obviously going to take the $7 million, right? You're going to take the $7 million. If you're extremely lucky, you might be able to negotiate a small deal off of the back of it, saying that we'll take the $7 million, but we also get a very small fraction of the sales that from this game as well. So say 3% of every sale. We'll also get that as well to secure our long-term future. Like, I don't know whether or not these are the kind of deals that are going down. Obviously, I will never know this. I'm not in a position where I will have access to this kind of information, but you'd hope that these kind of things were going on, because obviously that will help secure futures for video game publishers, developers, and everybody else that's working on these kinds of games. So again, it's a very difficult decision to be able to make, but I believe that Xbox Game Pass as a whole is a good thing, especially for the consumer. Ultimately, we are the winners in this. The people who are actually playing the games are the real winners when it comes down to Game Pass. It's all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes and the decision makers at the very top. Not of necessarily just X-Pac or at Xbox. It's the people who are obviously having their game put under the microscope of Xbox that are facing the tough decisions that will be being done with this. I would probably take the money. I would probably take the money because I know it's guaranteed. I know it's going to secure long-term investment. And Xbox putting that game on on Game Pass as well might end up getting more eyes on it, especially if you're an indie game. There's very good documentaries out there, like Anything That No Clip Do, really, The Gaming Historian. Is it one called Game Over? There's one called Insert Coin. There's one called the Video Games Movie or something like that. And it famously shown Fez. Obviously the 2.5 adventure game. That famously, where the guy was going berserk about it. What was it called? Something Fish. I can't remember. I have David Fish in my head, obviously a friend of the channels who used to stream over on Twitch, used to play a lot of eFootball, but I can't remember what it was called. But anyway, famously, obviously his game, I think it went live late on the home store when they told it was going to be, say, 12 o'clock. It was there at 9 o'clock instead, and they thought the forecast of that game would get him pushed back because something else might have gone on at 10 o'clock, which then the window of opportunity for people to see it for 9 hours would have gone. They would have only got an hour for it, which then would have fallen down the pecking order. They might not have been in the trending tab. You know, all of these small things that you have to expect when the game goes live. If those aren't there, it doesn't quite give the same boost that you'd come to expect, or you was being told that was going to happen. So yeah, it's a dangerous world out there for a toy, obviously, Toy Story quote. But yeah, it's a very difficult industry to be in because there is just so many different mechanics, different cogs moving at different times, and you literally just have to be extremely lucky. That's what it comes down to. The likes of Among Us and Fall Guys and stuff like that, would those games have been as popular if they weren't party games and the biggest streamers in the world wasn't playing them at a time? Like, it just comes down to luck. Especially Among Us is probably the biggest example in all of this. During lockdown, obviously people wasn't going out, they wasn't able to go and play sports or anything. People were going out and buying their old favorite consoles again just to be able to try and make the time go faster because you were stuck in all day. So people was playing imposter games like Among Us. Amazing. It's basically a real life board game that's being played in a video game. It's amazing. It's not my bag, but I understand obviously from the content that people was putting out there that they thoroughly enjoyed it. But yeah, I hate using the word cringe, but I can't get into a character like that whilst playing the game. I've got no poker face, so I just think it's cringe. Like, you can tell I've got resting bitch face when it comes to stuff like that. It's just very... If you say something stupid, you'll immediately just see my face go. Like, if I find something funny, I'll immediately start laughing. I just don't have a poker face. I'm a terrible liar, and I don't have a poker face. So those kind of games just go right over my head because I can't play them. But anyway, we have one more news story for you guys today. And again, it's been written over at VGC. I've just seen a comment from Jay saying, "You want the truth? You can't handle the truth. They hate Game Pass." And Phone is saying, "Google Translator just blown up trying to work out what Bibby's saying." I mean, that's every single day. You guys only have to put up with me for like an hour a day. How do you feel for the likes of Graham? How do you feel for the likes of my boy? How do you feel for the likes of my wife? Do you know what I mean? They get the brunt of it. But anyway, written on VGC by Tom Ivan, he says that Nintendo's next console, shareholders ask about backwards compatibility and more. The company wants Nintendo accounts to help set up customers' smooth transition to its next console. So it's something that we've been alluding to for the longest time now. Are we going to get a Switch Pro? Ads will be coming in a minute, busting the door down, screaming Switch Pro. We aren't too sure what it's going to consist of, but obviously Nintendo are now starting to plan for the future, which is very good news for us. So Nintendo was faced with fresh questions about its next generation of consoles plans during its 83rd general meeting of shareholders last week. In May, Nintendo reported a slowdown in Switch console sales but suggested no new hardware would be launching before April 2024. Following its sales update, Nikkei Asia, I think I've nailed that again, claimed to have been informed by a source close to Nintendo that work on the company's next console appears to be going very smoothly. Unsurprisingly, several questions during this month's stakeholders meetings were about plans for its future hardware, including backwards compatibility support. Nintendo 3DS and Wii U games purchased through the Nintendo Wii Store can't be transferred to the Switch, and one shareholder suggested it would be disheartening if this was the case with Nintendo's next console. As for his thought on this, company's president Shuntaro Fukuwara responded, translated by VGC contributor Robert Stephenson. I think I've absolutely nailed that as well. We are always considering various things about specifications of future hardware, but at this stage, I would like to refrain from making any specific comments about future hardware. As for the sales style of Nintendo Switch software, there are different types like physical packages, software bought in stores, downloaded version packages of software, and also download-only software. Many of our customers have been playing Nintendo Switch with download software or download-only software, and compared to previous game consoles, the ratio of digital sales has been increasing. As a company, we would like to continue proposing unique gameplay through dedicated games consoles that integrate hardware and software in the future, so please look for it. Asked if the company could share specific strategies for moving from Switch to its next console, Fukuwara told shareholders that company wants to utilize Nintendo accounts to help make the transition process a smooth one for its customers. Regarding the transition to the next generation, in the past, hardware was the only means for us to connect with our customers, and every time we released a new console, we had to rebuild our relationships with our customers, he said. However, with the Nintendo Switch, we have been able to directly connect with various customers through Nintendo account systems. The Nintendo account is only usable for those with game consoles, but also for customers on mobile devices and current number of accounts exceeding 290 million. In the transition from Nintendo Switch to the next generation of consoles, we would like to make sure that customers can smoothly transition while utilizing their Nintendo accounts. Nintendo has previously emphasized the importance of a Nintendo account for integration for its next consoles. Its accounts were introduced in 2016 as a means of unifying the user experience between Nintendo mobile games, online stores, and also consoles. Players on mobiles can receive reward for competing challenges in console games and share a friends list. The accounts were integrated with Nintendo Switch when it launched in 2017, tracking user data as friends list, save files, experience data, software purchases, history, and more. Nintendo said last month that it had sold 17.97 million Switch consoles during the fiscal year ended in March, and taken a lifetime sales to 125 million, a feat only bettered by its Nintendo DS handheld at 154 million and Sony's PlayStation 2 at 155 million. With Switch having now entered its 7th year on the market, Nintendo expects to sell 15 million units during its current fiscal year, which would represent a 16.5% year-over-year decline. Okay, so the main part of this, I feel, is the fact that Nintendo have always been able to repackage their games and sell it on the next console. That's how I feel like that's not necessarily the entire library of Nintendo games in this generation of Switch users, but the fact that whatever game came out on the Wii, whatever game came out on the Wii U, that it had moderate success or super successful, they've been ported over to the Switch, which then means that you have to go out and spend another £50 to be able to play that. Very much like the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. If you bought a PlayStation 4 game, chances are you can go into your library, download it. If it has a free PlayStation 5 update, fantastic. If it doesn't, you're playing the PlayStation 4 version on your PlayStation 5. The Nintendo Switch doesn't have a facility like that, but they've made damn well sure that every game that they have pretty much brought out over the last 15 years, if not longer, has been ported over to the Nintendo Switch. Are they going to want to lose out on that kind of money if, for instance, Tears of the Kingdom, Legend of Zelda, brand new console comes out, Nintendo Switch 2, we'll call it for the sake of this. Nintendo Switch 2 comes out, and then 2 years down the line, they've got a brand new version of that game being put on the console. Are you going to go ahead and download your Nintendo Switch version? Or are you going to go out and spend another £60 on buying the game for it as well? The new version of the game. might have an enhanced graphics, might have more DLC or something to go along with it. They're going to want you to buy the brand new version of the game, right? Obviously, they want you to be able to do that rather than you just re-downloading the old version. So that's how they've been able to maintain as much money and get as much money as they have done for the last 7 years, because they've literally just taken older games. I'm not saying that they haven't brought any new ones out, but the fact that they didn't bring out a new Mario Kart game on the Nintendo Switch and instead just keep on building new tracks into it because they already know that you've spent your £50 on Mario Kart 8. They can keep on bringing you back with DLC packages and things like that rather than bringing your Mario Kart 9 out, which has 10 courses that'll cost you 60 quid. They just keep on throwing new courses at you at £10 a pop, because it might contain 3 different courses or one backwards course or something like that. They've already got you invested in it. So I'll be very interested to see what they end up doing with their business model going forward, because I know they know what their business model is, and that's selling you older games on the newer console. I don't know what their new business model will end up looking like when the new console comes out. So JMK says, translation, we'll do whatever makes us the most money. If we can sell games multiple times, this is great and will make us more money. That's essentially what it comes down to. That's essentially what it comes down to. But they're a business at the end of the day. We're the consumer. They're the people who are making the money. They're the ones that are footing the bill. They're the ones that are making teams of people to be able to put these games in front of us. They're decision makers. We can't really do much about that. But yeah, that is pretty much it for today's news. I told you it was going to be a quick one because I do have a lot to get on with this afternoon. Very quick, half-an-hour show. Get it blasted out. Rumour has it that Graham may be back tomorrow. He may be well enough to be able to give us an episode of The Scoop, so do look forward to that. Well, I'm sure this will last a hell of a lot longer than an hour if that is the case. But do stick around, though. We will send you over to one of our friends who is currently streaming. But as always, if you want to get involved with the show, if you want to help shape the 2 remaining shows this week, there is 2 ways that you can do so. First of all, find us on social media. It is at Ice Cream Loads across all major social media platforms, or alternatively, get involved with our Discord. All we need from you is a URL plus your thoughts and impressions. We will then give you our thoughts and impressions on the very next show, which will probably not be around 10 a.m. tomorrow, but it will be at some point, depending on when we're able to get all of our meetings and obviously work stuff out of the way first, because that, my friends, is what pays the bills. So again, do stick around. We'll send you over to one of our friends who is currently streaming. And as always, there's one thing that we want you to do, my friends, and that is to stay frosty.